On the agenda tonight, we're going to be taking a look at another featured artist in episode 4 of Under the Spotlight. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another Under the Spotlight episode. If you do enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So tonight we are joined by a very good friend of the channel, Daniel Donato, and Daniel has previously appeared in an episode of In at the Deep End on this channel, and now here he is under the spotlight. Daniel is a country-influenced artist performing his own unique style of cosmic country. He's active on Instagram, so follow him there. Check out his YouTube channel where he has weekly live videos from his current Cosmic Country tour. Also check out his latest podcast episode of The Lost Highway with special guest none other than Steve Vai. All the links can be found in the description below, but without further ado, let's get Daniel up on screen and see what he's got in store for us as he goes under the spotlight. And there we have it. So, what a fantastic solo that was by Daniel. And we've got some themes running through there. We will get the guitar out in a second just to analyse those. And quite a few arpeggios in there, just top level technique on that right hand with hybrid picking. But let's jump into it. So now that we've got the guitar out, the first thing to mention is that we've got a little bit of reverb on the sound here and a bit of delay as well. So I've applied a little bit of that to my amp, and I've got the telly out, of course, because Daniel's playing his telly here. So we'll jump right into it from the beginning and have a little look through it and see what's going on. So, straight off the bat, we're going in with our little bend, 15th fret here. And then applying some vibrato on that 12th fret of the high E string. And a little bend, playing with third finger now, 15th fret, high E string. And we might have a little bend up and down again. Actually a double bend there. Kind of like that. And when I do that bend of my 15th fret, don't get put off by the fact that there is a little bit of fret buzz at the top of my bend. That wouldn't normally happen with new strings. These are very old strings. It's definitely in need of a change, but it's just adding a slightly different sound in there, different tonality to the bend. Kind of like that. So don't worry too much about that. Let's carry on. Okay, so really nice transition here. We've got this. So that was just a little bend down. And then repeating that phrase twice. So when we're playing through this, it's almost like a call and response, but with without the response. It's leaving a little space in there, which is great to leave little spaces in your solos, because as Daniel progresses, he will start filling in a lot of those spaces. But to begin with, we've just got a little bit of that gap. I've just taken it back a little bit because we'll listen to it again, but I'm going to play the same phrase in the space between Daniel's lead lines here, so we can almost get that call and response, even though it's going to be the same line. So you can hear the amount of space that we get between the notes. You can have that response in the background if you wanted to, and it's going to make it really interesting, just leaving spaces in the first place like Daniel's done here. And like I said, there is a bit of a delay on the sound here, but it's also showing how melodic the lines are, that you can play the exact same phrase again, note for note, and it's not boring. It still sounds nice. If anything, it's a nice response hearing the line again and just hearing it double as long. Even this phrase we have, and we go down. So hearing that 4 times, because of the changes in the background, the way that Daniel's changing his lead playing with the chords in the background, it gets a really nice melodic effect. I just want to mention a little theme that will pop up throughout this solo and the analysis: the arpeggiation of chords, taking notes from chords and playing with the chords as they're changing in the background, because that's what Daniel's doing here. And when we get into this little bend here, we're in our E minor, so that's our little bit of natural minor scale in there, into the F, and now we've got the over to the A minor, same. But then, when we change over to the G, we're going... Actually, there's a couple of bends in there to now end in our G shape here. So, the way that is being pieced together, obviously it sounds really cool and melodic, but it's just playing with these changes and the way that the E minor... to that A minor, and when we get to the G, that's where we then transition. If we went again and we ended on the G, that last note, as you can maybe hear, and playing it with the chord, isn't going to fit as nicely as playing our... because now we've got our whole G chord there, and is something that when you're playing along, and it really does strike me like Daniel's just feeling his way through here, and he did give me a few takes just to have a choice between them, but he's just jamming it out here. And these kind of decisions are just spur of the moment. It's very much an extemporization thing where he's just listening to that progression and intentionally changing the notes that he's playing consciously to go with the chords as they change underneath, because he would know that going into that G, he knows that that's going to be a slightly better choice. You can go to that first finger, but it's going to have a hint of a clash in there with the chord underneath, because it's effectively your chord is going to be the sus2. Kind of like that. So going to that sus2 of the chord is nice when you're playing chords, but in terms of lead, you can resolve it there all the way down to the root note. And when I say resolving here, we're not technically resolving down to the root note here with Daniel, but he's choosing a note, that third, which is going to be part of your chord. That's the point, that this note we have, when I play the chord, like that, that's a note within the chord of G, so it means that it's going to sit in there really well because it's part of the chord that you would be playing anyway. The other thing to look out for is the vibrato that Daniel's adding in here. Whenever there's a note that's being held for any length of time, he's just applying that technique just to get that note to sing a little bit more. We also have that little pre-bend, like that, into straight bends, and the... kind of like that. We'll listen to the phrase again, but then we'll get into the next part. Okay, so we've got more arpeggios going on there. So when we get into that, those are going to be our notes. The same shape moving up into, I think it was along those kind of lines. So when we're analysing that, we've got just the top end of our chord here as would be our minor seventh. So it means that when we're playing this D minor seventh, we're just taking the top end of that chord. So we're going, and then, and here, technique wise, first finger is kind of rolling. I'm obviously exaggerating it there. It's a really subtle roll of that first finger that will counteract the chord sound if you were to bar it. If I was going and barring across there, they would all ring out. Whereas when you roll the finger, you're just alleviating the pressure on the fretboard so that the other notes don't ring out. So we get this like that. It's a really subtle technique, but it is just rolling the finger across the strings so that you allow enough pressure just to fret the note that you want and not the other notes that you don't want to ring out. It looks like Daniel might be taking a little bit of pressure off his first string on the left hand during those phrases after that first, and then letting go of that left hand a little bit to get that kind of sound. So just breaking it up in between, and maybe not as much as rolling the finger, but that's one of those techniques that you can have a little play around with in order to clean up notes where you would normally be playing a bar. We're going to have a listen to that phrase again, but also notice the slides, the way that Daniel's sliding into these shapes. So going like that, sliding up to that 12th fret, and kind of like that. We'll listen to the phrase again and then get into the next part. So we're ending with a little run there, but those slides only happened on the last two arpeggios that we went through there. So the first one very much stayed straight, and then sliding up to the 14th fret, and then sliding up to the 15th fret for the next one. And we had that little run, which was kind of like that, into an open E string, and just get your teeth into this little run we've got going on here. I say little. So I'm going to stop it there. Now, in terms of breaking these notes down, obviously there's a lot of notes in there. I have spent a little bit of time just trying to get the notes relatively close, but this is where we do bring in this technique of hybrid picking on the right hand. You can see the way that Daniel, when he's playing through it, he's using that second finger on the right hand in order to pick the other strings. Like that. It's something that I need to grow out my nails on the right hand a little bit more, and my hybrid picking technique is not one of those I spent a lot of time doing. In fact, if I was to try and play a similar kind of run with that and I would want to just flat pick it all the way because I'm not used to doing that hybrid technique on the right hand. But if I was playing that in relatively slow motion, the first thing that Daniel does is hits that low E string, which gives us a little bit of a reference to our root note of the chord, which is E minor. And we're now just playing E minor pentatonic shape 1 for this whole first section where we have this. And as we slide down at that point, so that was all minor pentatonic in there, as we slide down, it means that we're going into the F, which is where we slide down from And once we get to this point, we've got this little bend, and barring that third finger on the 13th fret of the high E string and B string, we've got like that really country sound to this. Kind of down. And then a little run that we have there as well. So it's that. Kind of like that. Let's have a little rewind and just, well, enjoy the run, but also try and get these notes done a little bit closer. And when going through that whole run, I know it's going to be tempting to look at Daniel's left hand because that's where all the movement's going on, but look at that second finger on the right hand. It's piecing this run together, just note after note after note, is really impressive from a technical standpoint with the right hand as well. Just the accuracy of bringing in that second finger, and it's just a subconscious thing. I mean, Daniel's done this so many times that he can just go through these runs as if it's nothing, but he absolutely nails them, considering it's really clean tone as well. So, working the way through it, and slowly we have... That's the run that we've got going on, and like I said, I did spend a little bit of time just getting the notes down. So we're trying to piece this together. It means that we've got this something like that, but not exactly like that. The way that Daniel's playing it, I think there's maybe a wrong note or two in there. Just to mention about that hybrid picking technique on the right hand, because when you use that second finger to pick the next string, you're not having to move your pick down to that string. So you can follow that note on as quickly as you want to. And obviously it takes a lot of practice to then start throwing runs together and to just get used to that technique. But that's the advantage of using hybrid picking, is that you don't have to move your pick all over the place to find those strings that you want. Let's pick up the end of this run as we descend, because we're about to get into a few more arpeggios. Okay, so the first one now, I'm going to let it play on a little bit. Okay, that's a good place to stop it. So, once you've played through our run of the... we now slide into a little E minor arpeggio. Again, taking notes from the chord here. We've got this... those are your notes from the E minor chord. So we've got that... kind of like that. We then slide up just one fret further, because now we're in F. So we have to play the major shape, which will be that, in order to get your notes from the F major chord. So a little chop and a change there between a minor shape into a major shape, and that here we have made a really cool transition into the A minor, but the run continues on from the F that we had. So I'll do it in slow motion. We have this. Because by this time, we've got that natural minor scale in A minor coming in. So a really cool transition there, especially when we throw it together with the run of having that. And then we get into it from there. And I think we then have a little run up at that point, but let me just take it back and make sure that's all okay. Yeah, we just have that. kind of like that. And here, we're pretty much going from our A minor into our G. And this is where that final note comes in, because we're natural minor scale here. That final note is going to take us right into G. That's going to be our major note of our chords. So you get a really nice transition at the end of that run. From the A minor into the G. So really cool stuff there. Again, playing with the chords in the background. So we've got this. Along those kind of lines, and then I think we're going to get into more arpeggios here. And now we're just getting the voicings of the chords. Again, really cool. So we're going into and then another arpeggio. So that was and then we're kind of making our way up there. When we're playing this first shape, Daniel's playing just 2 notes and 2 strings at a time. This is over a D minor. So if you've got your minor pentatonic shape 1, just taking a couple of notes out of that shape. We then go up to an E minor. So now, again, pentatonic shape 1 in E minor, and we have this. So those last 1, 2, 3, 4 are notes from that E minor pentatonic shape. So you get that. And you can see there that little transition, first finger, to get yourself in position to play that E minor shape. We then, on the backing, have a change to F. And this is where we have this F on the low E string. And there's a little run up that happens then as well. And we went a little bit too far there. Okay, so we have this. There's a little slide down from that 17th fret on the B string, but that kind of like that. I think those were the notes. And we have that little bar that comes in with arpeggios here. That bar with the 3rd finger. I tend to kind of hammer on there with that 3rd finger to then get myself up into the top end of that chord. And that's all we're doing here, by the way, is that we would have our F chord if I was to play the bar chord here. And all we're doing is playing the notes from this chord in sequence. We do take the 3rd, just the major 3rd there, but then all of these notes are just notes from the chord as we would be playing it with a bar chord. So we get this. And that's the run that we're getting from Daniel. Let's just jump in to the last section. Okay, so we jumped up to... This is really tight up here now because obviously the frets get shorter as you go up the guitar. So if you don't play the guitar, the higher you get up, the more difficult it is to fit your fingers in these spaces. So it's maybe an advantage of having slightly smaller hands. I do have slightly smaller hands, so I can kind of get away with it. So really squashing the fingers in there to get that run. Kind of like that. Even playing it slowly is tricky to try and get those notes to ring out because the frets are so small. But we then have a little... I'm not sure of that next part. Let me just take it back a little bit so we can have a listen. Okay, so we've got that. Okay, back into a little bend there. And little slide down again. You want to be in your extended shape here, and again in C, so that we've got that bend. Sliding down and into now 5th fret, 7th fret. Let's just have another little listen to this final phrase. And there we have it. So when we make our way down, we've got this, and we've got the, well, actually, this little bend that we have, and there's a little bluesy run that we have. It starts with that little rake across the G and the B that are muted. And it sounds along those kind of lines. And there's one final shape right at the end. Once we've played our... we get into... and these bends that happened. And here we've got just our C chord. Again, this is really country in terms of the sound. These little techniques that, I mean, I've never played any of these before because I don't play a lot of country music myself, but it sounds really cool. The playing the chord and then bending that first finger on the 7th fret down to where your 2nd finger would be. So you need to make sure that obviously you get that bend to that point, but when Daniel's doing it, he's kind of letting that bend come down and then back up again, just pinching it, and once he's there, he then slides up just for a little finish right at the end. But let's have another little listen to that. And there it was, that little slide up at the end, but we've got that, just bending that string, really cool sound. Because of the way that it's been thrown together melodically, but also with the chords, you can jump into your chord shapes. Like when we had that little E minor arpeggio into the F, and now into that A minor, kind of like that. And then you've got your, again, one bit leads into the next bit because of the chords that you're playing. And yeah, then into your F major arpeggio. So really cool stuff here, and the way that it's just been played technically as well. I mean, Daniel's one of those players that just has top technique all across the fretboard with a hybrid picking as well. That's another thing to mention, that I'm flat picking all of this, so it's not going to sound exactly the same. But if you do get a chance to focus on that right hand, you can see that 2nd finger just pop in and out in order to get that hybrid picking going. So let's have another little look at Daniel's solo in its entirety. a huge thank you to Daniel for sending this our way so we can have a little look at him under the spotlight. And make sure that you check out Daniel's social media pages, his website, his YouTube channel. All of those links are going to be in the description below. And just check out his Cosmic Country because it is definitely worth your time. But thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!